about these doors, how they originated. Let's start with how they originated and what they mean.
Okay, these used to be on the screen. That's what closed the screen in the church behind the altar. And they were really designed, as our legend says, and I know part of it is true, by Father French and one of our first parishioners, Tony Tambini, and a bottle of scotch. Those who know Father French know scotch is part of his mystique. So it's really, this was the thing of our salvation history, and also just a history lesson of everything. You can see peace, and then for our Jewish roots, shalom, and here, scripture is always a two-edged sword to do it. Flames here, 7 gifts of the Holy Spirit. Fish, of course. Butterfly, always a symbol of Easter, and we're an Easter people. And if you look at the center, you'll see the Christ, the risen Christ, our Ascension. And then if you notice in here, there's a chalice with the host, 3 circles for the Blessed Trinity. And there's more here, I'm sure. Some of it I can't remember about, of course, the world, because of the fact Christianity, Catholicism is throughout the world. But anyway, it's just, I think it's one of the treasures that sometimes no one sees because the doors are open on Sunday and Saturday evening, and people don't get to really look at it. And it's just a very nice piece. It was the first thing, in the church itself, this building, it was back there, and it was one of the first things you'd see when you walked in. So anyway, that's about that with everything. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, hi again.
Hello. So tell us how you came to be at Ascension yourself.
When we moved here, my mother, who lived in Larkspur, always told us, you have to start to look at this new church that was just formed here in Kempsville. And so we looked it up. At the time, we were meeting Saturday night at the Kempsville Presbyterian Church, the old part, and we had, so we went, we liked it. I had just come from Chicago, Jesuits, so we were very, Mass was, nice. I was looking forward to a community too. So we really did it, and it was kind of going there. People were very welcoming. Tommy and Donna Brewer, of course, I think everybody has heard of them, welcomed us. And finally, took a couple weeks before we actually physically registered in the parish. We had a 5-year-old daughter, my husband and I at the time, and it was almost like right away we knew that part of the joining this parish was ministry. We were responsible. We were the church. It wasn't the building, because we did not have the building. And we were kind of, like somebody had said, Father French comes up to you and says, I have something I think you can do.
And how did you respond to that?
I wasn't sure, but I thought, I can try anything, Come on, I was 29 years old. You think you can do everything at that time? So, but I did, and I understood. And part of it was kind of what I had heard a lot about in my classes when I had Jesuits. I guess I shouldn't brag about them, but they really did. Community and part of church were important.
So what was the first area that you volunteered in?
I guess it was just some of the party. I mean, we'd have a lot of parties, I should say. I did that. But really, it was religious ed. Sister Eileen Fitzgerald was the sister who was our founding mother, along with Frenchie, as it were. And I just started working. They needed some teachers, and I volunteered to teach 6th grade and don't ask me why. We were in homes at that time, and I knew I couldn't be at my place because I was at my parents' house, not here, and I went to another house and taught there. It was exciting, to say the least, because 6th graders are a whole group themselves, but I figured if I can handle 6th graders, I could do anything. So I did that for 6th grade for a couple of years. 1st grade then, I had my daughter and friends, and I did that. We had a house by then, and I had a lot of these children whose parents are still in the parish. It's what's interesting. The Comerfords were there, and anyway, that's so I taught. And I also started to come in because I did not work outside the home and help Sister Eileen. I helped, she and Suzanne put classes together because we were meeting in houses. So we had to take all these people, these kids, of which there were quite a few of them in those days because we were a young parish, and get them into classes and try to get them into places that were close to their houses. When you have 4 or 5 children, that got to be a really complicated thing. But among us, there were about 4 of us who did it, and people would know the area, and people would say, okay, if she takes the 3rd graders, so and so can take the 6th graders here and that. So it was a community effort to get all these little ones and big ones to places.
So how long were you involved in religious education, and how did it change over the years?
Changing, probably the biggest thing was when Sister Eileen left, and then Mary Ann Rohde, one of our own people, took over as a MRE, because Father really did. That was part of Father French's thing, is the people. We are ministers, and we are to minister. And he started to have. There were 5 of us that he said he saw to do a ministry and to be kind of raised. And one was Tommy Brewer and Weedy Armstrong, who was the music, really our folk group person, and Donna, and me in religious ed. Okay, there was a 5th, and I just lost it. I am sorry. We'll cut that, and we'll figure it out. I know. Anyway, and Norb Kurzak was our minister of finance. That was and that. So I kind of worked with Sister Eileen, and then we started to realize we had to be out of houses. And once the building came, we started doing classes here, and that was probably the biggest change. And then it was trying to figure out how to get all these classes. You had to do some on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and be able to use the space. So that was a big change there.
What are some of your favorite memories of Ascension, whether it's in religious education or some other aspect of the parish? Some of those early, especially at the early years.
I think a lot of it, we had oyster roasts, and people go over to the eastern shore to get oysters. And we had a priest here, Father Francis Quinn, P. Francis Quinn, who we sometimes call our poet laureate, had been over there. So he would drive over with whoever was picking up the things. And I loved them. And I don't eat oysters, but I enjoyed the oyster roast. So it was a lot of just the spaghetti dinner. One of our first spaghetti dinners, we did not have the hall at that time. And we would go, and I remember it was Rita and Rilla Payne and Mary Ann DeLuca, and our 2 North Italians, and making the sauces and having to bring pots because we didn't have enough big pots. And to go back to another one was Mary Ann DeLuca's daughter Angela's wedding. We had the wedding, of course, we had the church in there, the worship space, and that's what Mary Ann wanted, a sit-down meal, an Italian sit-down meal. So the parish, when we all got together, after the Mass, it was torn down and put chairs and tables put up for eating, for a sit-down dinner in 15 to 17 minutes. The guys got it done. It was unbelievable. I mean, we still talk about it. And in the kitchen, everybody was cooking. It had been cooking a days ahead, and then we had people who served. And I was a server because I'm not Italian and I'm not a good cook. Anyway, we had our plates. We knew which table we had. We went to that table. We would put it in there. And Angie Hughes, who was another longtime member of the parish who recently passed away, was there and was ready to say, "This is wonderful. We should do this for all the weddings." Luckily, no one was. I think if we had our chances, we're going, "Angie, you're crazy." But anyway, it was so much fun, and it really was everyone coming together at that time to get a lovely wedding done. When we didn't have the worship space. And then more recently, I mean, it was it was really the camaraderie and really the parish coming together. Ralph Horton, who had been one of the founding members of the parish, a close friend of Father French's, worked with him in a lot of the getting the parish organized, by the way, and had been a classmate of John Kennedy, President Kennedy, died in a horrible fire at their house. And the people came together just to help over there what we could, get everything out that could be taken out, that could be saved, because the fire had just been really in one part. And Father French at Saturday night Mass coming and telling us and saying to us in tears, do you know how special all of you are? You know, because what the parish did for the family and everything. And then more recently, probably Father Park's funeral, because just filled this church. And I mean, that was just the way Father Park was, touched so many lives, that we had people here from the city and from churches all over, and people we don't even know who they are, but somehow Father Park touched their lives. So that would be.
That's wonderful. Let's talk about how your own spiritual growth, how has your own spirituality, your faith development been impacted by Ascension, by either certain ministries or pastors or whatever?
Yeah.
How has that affected you?
Well, each and every pastor brought his own, fingerprints upon this parish. So I guess for me, it's just the fact that it's a living thing. I hate to even use the word thing, but it's that we think of religion as being here, and our real life maybe being here. And the fact, I think most of us who are of a certain age kind of grew up with that. When you went into church, you didn't smile. You were very serious, and you prayed, and then you went out, and that was the end of it almost. I mean, you had to be nice to people, and you didn't sin, but didn't eat meat on Friday. It was a lot of rules and regulations is how you lived your life. And I think I was starting to get a little better because, just growing up, but the fact that it really does work, that your faith is a part of your life. And faith isn't necessarily religion. Religion isn't, definitely faith. It's, people are religious. They may not have faith. But I think that that's part of it, is just that it's who I am. It's just part of me. It's part of what I do. It's nothing separate, I guess.
And you came to realize that through Ascension?
Yeah, I think it came to, there was something there. I mean, before I came here, I hadn't gone to church for a couple years. I mean, I'd go, and that, but it wasn't anything really doing it. When we were in Chicago, I had some wonder. I think after having to leave, I went to Loyola University, so it was a Catholic university. I went to Mass every day. And it was really a part of my life, but there were the separate things, but I knew something was there should be a little more. And then when we got out into the real world, left school, I kind of just, and also being very young, parishes in Chicago tend to be very old. And, it's a type of thing. So it came here. I just said, oh, you do. It was just something you learned, that it was just part of who you are. You live it. It's how you live. Jesus is that big part of my life. God, the Trinity. I can memorize all those things, but what do those words mean? And I think that was probably one of the best things. We had some great speakers, and Gorman Sullivan, who came a couple times a year to try to really explain the difference, because we were a Vatican II parish. So the changes, not just Latin to English, but how beautiful the Mass is, what it really was supposed to be, et cetera, et cetera. So that would be it. Gorman Sullivan, Father French, and the people of this parish. I mean, everybody has a little bit of influence that you don't realize sometimes.
So that spirit that started this church, started the parish and so forth, how is that spirit and mission that started 50 years ago, how do you see that reflected today in parish life and ministry?
Well, I think it's funny because sometimes I think we have the same problems. You see the same people doing things, that we had way back then. But I really do believe that a lot of people are, I don't know, maybe celebrate their faith, especially the young people. And I have kids in here, and I'll call them kids that I knew before they were born, who now have their own children here. And I thought, to really and contribute. I mean, they don't just come on Sunday morning and that they're a vital part of the parish. And I said, I just said that there's something that maybe we are doing right, that we do have young people involved, and that really believe it's not, because my mother's coming to town this weekend, I better get to Mass or something type of thing. So I think it's still here. It may not be the same, and it isn't the same because we've grown 50 years, but there's something that just is alive, that the Spirit is alive in this parish and lives through the people in this parish.
Beautiful. Okay. Let's see.
Anything else you want to add?
No, I'll think of 60 things, like they said.
I'm going to ask you, so part of Vatican II was, it was about the laity taking
Yes.
a greater role. And in particular, I've heard it said that Ascension, the French really called on women to have a whole new role. How did you see that? And was that scary?
No, it wasn't. I mean, he did, yes, it wasn't so much. I'm trying to say, because I'm glad you can edit this. We have to be careful because women in the church are still second-class citizens. We can't deny that, and everything. But I think it was being a little more than being the bread. Let's make some bread. Let's get some. We need the church cleaned. Will you get a group of women together and come and get the church cleaned? Type of things that you really did understand that you are called to do something. Now, I've got to be careful. My mother came to the church and somebody said, oh, that parish. It was somebody she played cards. Her bridge club said to her, oh, she says, how can you belong to Mary? Because, they expect you to do something. And, so the reputation was there that if you came, you were really expected to help build the parish. You're part of it. You have work in it. And my mother really looked at her. She goes, I babysit my granddaughter so my daughter and son-in-law can go to the church and do their thing. And I thought, Mom really saw that was her gift. She could babysit and help take care of Kathy so that Jim and I could be here. So I thought, somehow it got out there. People understood. So, it didn't mean that you had to actually teach a class or physically do it. There were ways to do it. And we did. I think we've always tried to say that there are people who are homebound or physically. You can pray. You can pray for the parish, and that can be your ministry is remembering us. And I thought that's, just part of it. It isn't all just physically doing something. It's scary when you first hear it, though, Amy, to really say it, because you think, oh my gosh, we got to do something. But and then to get up to go to other parish. I mean, and really things were starting at other places too. To do that, I think we just were fortunate. We did not have an old building that you had to go. That my mother, or my grandfather gave the money for the altar rail, or and all the other things that you heard when they had to change to Vatican II. We became a Vatican II parish. That was what we were based on. So we just hit the ground running, and I think that's part of it. And I think it's lasted 50 years. It's not going to. It's the same, but it's not the same. It's different, but it's not different. So it's a great parish. I mean, we've got people here like 8 years, 10 years, and that who feel very much part of the parish as much as the 50-year-olds. Yeah. I am sorry. This is. Yeah. I don't know if anyone's even talked about the RCIA, because that's probably one of the most important ministries that we did, was to bring people into the Catholic Church in a different way. First class we had, and I don't mean to use the word class because it's not it was a process, but where so many spouses that half of us didn't know they weren't Catholic because they did so much in the church. They were part of it. And that was another thing. I know one of our first members of parish council, I think it helped out with parish council, was the non-Catholic spouse of, one of our parishioners. But the book came down in the idea of using a process rather than Father Smith meets with the guy and becomes Catholic. And we had this book that had some ideas, and Father French got a group of people together, and we were just talking, and he said, okay, let's do it. We don't even know what we're doing, but that was it. A lot of it, we weren't afraid to make mistakes. They weren't going to be horrible mistakes that, that were theologically or liturgically sinful, as it were. But we managed to get a group of people together, people to be sponsors, to go up and go, have you ever thought of being a sponsor? What? Just to share, I can't share my religion. I don't know anything. I just go to church on Sunday, or whatever they said. And it was just what it gave to the sponsors. We finally could talk people into it. The first couple classes, gigantic people. And Cindy Laufer Cindy Laufer was in one of the first classes, second, third class of the RCI. And I don't want to use that word class, but group. Anyway, so we had people like to share their faith. And at the end, people would go as a sponsor. She said, I got more out of that than I gave. I don't think I was a great sponsor because I got more than I think my person did. But we just kind of worked with it. And of course, then more and more stuff came down as it got to be used throughout the United States. But we were one of the first parishes, I think, in the country that actually just said, let's do it, instead of waiting until the book was written. Okay, yes.
Tell us about Father French's dog.
Oh, Arthur. Arthur was a dog of questionable breed. But just a nice short-haired dog, very nice, very laid back. Father would be doing Mass, and Arthur would come and lay under the altar, just walk in, sit down. Sometimes then when we finally even moved in here, sometimes Arthur would come in, usually not during Sunday liturgy, but during the weekday liturgies. At our festivals, he was very good at getting hot dogs or food out of a small kid's hand. And this would be because he was about yay high, your hand would be there, and he could just work his way through the food. And that, so Arthur was just, really to put up with all he did, and all the kids touching, all the people touching. He was a really great, great dog, but very, very well fed.